The next sutta is 46.12. Buddha said, monks, this is the forerunner and precursor of the rising of the sun, that is, the dawn. So too monks, for a monk this is the forerunner and precursor for the arising of the 7 factors of enlightenment, that is, good friendship, kalyana mitta. When a monk has a good friend, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the 7 factors of enlightenment. And how does a monk who has a good friend develop and cultivate the 7 factors of enlightenment? Here monks, a monk develops the enlightenment factor of mind, of recollection, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion and cessation, maturing and release. He develops the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, etc. It is in this way, monks, that a monk who has a good friend develops and cultivates the 7 factors of enlightenment. So here the Buddha says that before the sun can rise, the dawn must come. And so in the same way the Buddha says that before you can develop the 7 factors of enlightenment, you need a good friend who will help you to develop these 7 factors of enlightenment. So this is a good spiritual friend. So in the Buddha's teachings, a good spiritual friend is very important. So the best spiritual friend, of course, as I mentioned, is the Buddha's words. And then if on top of the Buddha's words, you have another spiritual friend who can help you to understand more of the Buddha's words, that will be ideal. 46.14. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. On that occasion, the Venerable Mahakassapa was dwelling in the Pipali cave, sick, afflicted, gravely ill. Then in the evening, the Blessed One emerged from seclusion and approached the Venerable Mahakassapa. He sat down in the appointed seat and said to the Venerable Mahakassapa, I hope you are bearing up, Kassapa. I hope you are getting better. I hope that your painful feelings are subsiding and not increasing, and that their subsiding, not their increase, is to be discerned. And he said, Venerable Sir, I am not bearing up. I am not getting better. Strong, painful feelings are increasing in me, not subsiding. And their increase, not their subsiding, is to be discerned. And the Buddha said, these 7 factors of enlightenment, Kassapa, have been rightly expounded by me. When developed and cultivated, they lead to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. But 7, the enlightenment factor of recollection has been rightly expounded by me. When developed and cultivated, it leads to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. The enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma has been rightly expounded by me, and similarly for the other factors. These 7 factors of enlightenment, Kassapa, have been rightly expounded by me. When developed and cultivated, they lead to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. And remember, Kassapa said, surely, Blessed One, they are factors of enlightenment. Surely, Fortunate One, they are factors of enlightenment. This is what the Blessed One said. Elated, the Venerable Mahakassapa delighted in the Blessed One's statement, and the Venerable Mahakassapa recovered from that illness. In such a way, the Venerable Mahakassapa was cured of his illness. So here, the Venerable Mahakassapa was very sick. So the Buddha came to him and found that he was very sick. They reminded him of the 7 factors of enlightenment and the 7 Bojjhanga. When he heard of the 7 Bojjhanga, he was so happy. He was so happy that all the sickness went away. The next sutta also similar. 46.16. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling at Rajagaha in the bamboo grove, the squirrel sanctuary. Now on that occasion, the Blessed One was sick, afflicted, gravely ill. Then the Venerable Mahachunda approached the Blessed One, paid homage to him, and sat down to one side. The Blessed One then said to the Venerable Mahachunda, recite the factors of enlightenment, Chunda. And he said, these 7 factors of enlightenment, Venerable Sir, have been rightly expounded by the Blessed One. When developed and cultivated, they lead to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. What 7? The enlightenment factor of recollection has been rightly expounded by the Blessed One. When cultivated and developed, it leads to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. The enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, etc., etc. These 7 factors of enlightenment, Venerable Sir, have been rightly expounded by the Blessed One. When developed and cultivated, they lead to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to Nibbana. Surely Chunda, they are factors of enlightenment. Surely Chunda, they are factors of enlightenment. This is what the Venerable Mahachunda said. The teacher approved, and the Blessed One recovered from that illness. In such a way, the Blessed One was cured of his illness. So in the same way, the Buddha, when he heard about the 7 factors of enlightenment, he was so happy, and he recovered from his sickness. If you all remember, when we do the Bojjhanga chant, is mentioned there, the second paragraph. Ekasaming samai nato mogalanan chaka sapangilane dukite diswa bojjhange. That. Then the second one is that Ekada Dhammaraja Pigelanina Bipilito Chunda Terena Tanyeva Banna Petavana Sadarang, etc. So refers to these 2 suttas. The next sutta is 46.18. The Buddha said, monks, those who have neglected the 7 factors of enlightenment have neglected the noble path leading to the complete destruction of suffering. Those who have undertaken the 7 factors of enlightenment have undertaken the noble path leading to the complete destruction of suffering. What 7? The enlightenment factor of recollection, the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, etc. Monks, those who have neglected the 7 factors of enlightenment have neglected the noble path leading to the complete destruction of suffering. And those who have undertaken the 7 factors of enlightenment have undertaken the noble path leading to the complete destruction of suffering. So this is just to reiterate the importance of the 7 factors of enlightenment. If you neglect the 7 factors of enlightenment, you are not walking the path to the destruction of suffering. It's only when you undertake the 7 factors of enlightenment, cultivate the 7 Bojjhangas, that you are walking the path to the complete destruction of suffering. The next sutta is 46.26. The Buddha said, monks, develop the path and the way that leads to the destruction of craving. And what is the path and the way that leads to the destruction of craving? It is the 7 factors of enlightenment. What 7? The enlightenment factor of recollection, enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, the enlightenment factor of energy, the enlightenment factor of delight, the enlightenment factor of tranquility, the enlightenment factor of concentration, enlightenment factor of equanimity. And this was said, the Venerable Udayi asked the Blessed One, Venerable Sir, how are the 7 factors of enlightenment developed and cultivated so that they lead to the destruction of craving? Buddha said, here Udayi, a monk develops the enlightenment factor of recollection, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion and cessation, maturing in release, which is vast, exalted, measureless, without ill will. When he develops the enlightenment factor of recollection, which is based upon seclusion, etc., craving is abandoned. With the abandoning of craving, kamma is abandoned. With the abandoning of kamma, suffering is abandoned. Similarly, he develops the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, energy, piti, tranquility, concentration, equanimity. And when he develops these 7 factors, craving is abandoned. With the abandoning of craving, kamma is abandoned. With the abandoning of kamma, suffering is abandoned. Thus, Udayi, with the destruction of craving comes the destruction of kamma. With the destruction of kamma comes the destruction of suffering. So when the monk develops the 7 factors of enlightenment, then the craving is abandoned because there's no need to crave for external things. The happiness is within him. So when he has no craving external things, he does not look for anything, so he does not do any karma. Then slowly it will lead him to liberation. Not doing any karma means not doing anything evil, which is necessary, and not even doing any good deeds like charity and all that. 46.29. Monks, I do not see even one other thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads to the abandoning of the things that fetter so effectively as this, the 7 factors of enlightenment. What 7? The enlightenment factor of recollection, the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, etc. And how monks are the 7 factors of enlightenment developed and cultivated so that they lead to the abandoning of the things that fetter. Here monks, a monk develops the enlightenment factor of recollection, which is based upon seclusion, dispassion and cessation, maturing in release. He develops the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, etc., which is based upon seclusion, dispassion and cessation, maturing in release. It is when the 7 factors of enlightenment are developed and cultivated in this way that they lead to the abandoning of the things that fetter. And what monks are the things that fetter? The eye is the thing that fetters. It is here that these fetters, shackles and clamps arise. The ear is the thing that fetters. The nose, the tongue, the body, the mind is the thing that fetters. It is here that these fetters, shackles and clamps arise. These are called the things that fetter. It's the end of the sutta. So the 6 sense bases are the things that fetter us to samsara. And when we cultivate the 7 Bojjhangas, it leads to liberation, and then all the 6 sense bases will be abandoned. 46.40. On one occasion, the Blessed One was dwelling among the Sumbas, where there was a town of the Sumbas named Siddhaka. Then the Venerable Udai approached the Blessed One and said, "It is wonderful, Venerable Sir. It is amazing, Venerable Sir. How helpful has been my devotion and reverence for the Blessed One, my sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing. For in the past, Venerable Sir, when I was still a householder, I did not have much concern for the Dhamma or the Sangha. But when I considered my devotion and reverence for the Blessed One, and my sense of shame and fear of wrongdoing, I went forth from the household life into homelessness. The Blessed One taught me the Dhamma thus: such is form, such its origin, such its passing away. Such is feeling, such is perception, volition, consciousness, such their origin, such their passing away. Then, Venerable Sir, while I was staying in an empty hut, following along with the surge and decline of the 5 aggregates of attachment, I directly knew as it really is, this is suffering. I directly knew as it really is, this is the origin of suffering. I directly knew as it really is, this is the cessation of suffering. I directly knew as it really is, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. I have made the breakthrough to the Dhamma, Venerable Sir, and have obtained the path, which when I have developed and cultivated, will lead me on, while I am dwelling in the appropriate way, to such a state that I shall understand, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done. There is no more for this state of being. I have obtained the enlightenment factor of recollection, which when I have developed and cultivated will lead me on, while I am dwelling in the appropriate way, to such a state that I shall understand, destroyed is birth. I have developed the enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, etc., which when developed and cultivated will lead me on, while I am dwelling in the appropriate way, to such a state that I shall understand, destroyed is birth. This, Venerable Sir, is the path that I have obtained, which will lead me on to such a state that I shall understand, destroyed is birth, there is no more for the state of being. And the Buddha said, "Good, good, Udai. Indeed, Udai, this is the path that you have obtained, and when you have developed and cultivated it, it will lead you on, while you are dwelling in the appropriate way, to such a state that you will understand, destroyed is birth, the holy life has been lived, what had to be done has been done, there is no more for this state of being." So this sutta, this Venerable Udai said that when he was a householder, he did not have much concern for the Dhamma or the Sangha. But when he reflected on the Buddha's teachings and on the Buddha and all that, then he went forth. And after he went forth, the Buddha taught him about his five aggregates of attachment. Then when he was staying in an empty kuti, he was contemplating the rise and fall of the 5 aggregates of attachment, the body, feeling, perception, volition and consciousness, how impermanent they are. Then he understood the 4 Noble Truths, and then he obtained the first path. Looks like what he means is he has attain the stream entry. And then he says that if he continues practicing the 7 Bojjhanga, it will lead him to complete liberation. So the next sutta is 46.31. Monks, whatever states there are that are wholesome, partaking of the wholesome, pertaining to the wholesome, they are all rooted in diligence, appamada, converge upon diligence, and diligence is declared to be the chief among them. When a monk is diligent, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the 7 Bojjhangas, factors of enlightenment. And how, monks, does a monk who is diligent develop and cultivate the 7 factors of enlightenment? Here, monks, a monk develops the enlightenment factor of recollection, enlightenment factor of investigation of Dhamma, etc., which are based upon seclusion, dispassion and cessation, maturing in release. In this way, monks, that a monk who is diligent develops and cultivates the 7 factors of enlightenment. So here the Buddha says that of all the wholesome states, diligence, energetic effort is the most important. If we want anything, we need to put in a lot of effort to get what we want. And we must also have the Dhamma to guide us so that we put our effort in the right direction. If you put your effort in the wrong direction, you'll be wasting your time. So it's very important to understand the path very clearly and then to be diligent. The next sutta, 46.32. Monks, whatever states there are that are wholesome, partaking of the wholesome, pertaining to the wholesome, they are all rooted in careful attention, yoniso manasikara, converge upon careful attention, and careful attention is declared to be the chief among them. When a monk is accomplished in careful attention, it is to be expected that he will develop and cultivate the 7 factors of enlightenment. And how, monks, does a monk who is accomplished in careful attention develop and cultivate the 7 factors of enlightenment? As before, he cultivates the factor of recollection, followed by the factor of investigation of Dhamma, followed by energy, etc. So here the Buddha says that careful attention is extremely important. It's just like the diligence. What is this careful attention? The Pali word is yoniso manasikara. Yoniso comes from the word yoni, which means the womb or the birthplace. Mana is the mind. Kara is work. So it is work of mind that leads you to the birthplace or origin of the problem. So when you think of a problem, you are able to consider up to the cause, the origin of the problem. In other words, it is a good translation is thorough consideration. Thorough consideration. So you consider carefully and you can see very clearly. So if a person, his mind is very clear, then he can consider very thoroughly and he can see the situation very well. Which reminds me like the King Solomon supposed to be very wise. So one day, 2 ladies were fighting over one baby. So one claimed that this baby belongs to her, the other claimed that the baby belongs to her. So they brought these 2 ladies and the baby to the king. So the king looked at the problem and then he thought about the problem. So he must have this yoniso manasikara. He could see the problem very clearly. So he said, you 2 quarrelsome ladies, making big fuss. Okay, you want the baby, ask the soldier to cut the baby in half, you take half, you take half. So the real mother, when she heard this, she cried. She said, no, don't do that. If she wants a baby, let her have her. So it's very clear, King Solomon, this lady that cried is the mother. So I gave the baby to her. So you see, to be able to see clearly the problem and how to solve the problem is this yoniso manasikara. So here, this translation, careful attention, although it's not exact, the translation, but it conveys the meaning that when you pay attention, you have to be very careful, consider thoroughly. So this is another factor that's very important. So I'll stop here for tonight. So you see how important it is to go through the suttas carefully, so that we understand exactly the Buddha's teaching. Because generally when you hear from other teachers, they talk about 7 Bojjhanga, and then they don't tell you how to practice the 7 Bojjhanga in the correct way. But here the Buddha tells you exactly, these 7 Bojjhangas must be practiced one by one. Just like the Noble Eightfold Path, you must start with right view. And then after that, it will lead you to right thoughts, and that will lead you to right speech, and that will lead you to right action. Like that. Yeah, anything?
Just make to find out when Papa dies, another person recite the 7 Bojjhangas, and they get killed, or what can get, then what caused the sickness to go away?
You see, nowadays actually doctors say a lot of our sickness, a lot of it, maybe 90%, is from the mind. Of course, for the Arahants, it's not from the mind. But even though it's a physical sickness, but because of their love for the Dhamma, they have so much respect and love for the Dhamma that when they hear these 7 factors of enlightenment, they are so happy. And this happiness pervades the body, you see. And they feel better.
Okay, so when I was listening to that, I was curious. Where is related to the sutta on the 86, they say that people when you listen to or cultivate the 7 factors of enlightenment, when this comes to the destruction of karma, the destruction of karma comes with the destruction of suffering. That is related.
Yes, but this destruction of karma means, doesn't mean total destruction of karma. It means that you firstly, if you walk the spiritual path or the holy path, you don't want to create bad karma, right? And then you don't want to create good karma like charity and all that. You don't go out of your way to do charity. Why? Because a person on the holy path, he goes inwards into his mind. Right? He develops the 7 factors of enlightenment. He's attained the 4 jhanas, When he's attained the 4 jhanas, he keeps going into his mind. He doesn't go out into the world. So in that way, he does not do any more karma. So it's in that sense, it's called destruction of karma. It's not that it's impossible for him to do any karma. He can do karma. Unless when the ego is eliminated, when the person attains arahanthood, then there is no self, there is no force behind that karma. So that when he does anything, when the Buddha, for example, when the Buddha says the Buddha decides to turn the Dhamma wheel, set in motion the Dhamma wheel to teach the Dhamma to the world. Actually, for an ordinary person, when you have this intention, is karma. But for the Buddha, for the enlightened person, there is no karma because there is no being behind the intention. So there is no karma. So in the case of a person who has not yet become enlightened, he still can create karma. It's only that he has no more interest to create karma.
Sometimes our friends are found to call them our gentle friends who strongly use and
Call them what? Not exactly correct. They are more like what we call soulmate. Nowadays people use the term soulmate. The mind refers to our mind, the state of the mind. Like you can say thoughts also, whatever is in the mind. To keep an eye on the mind, what is coming out in the mind. Just like feelings, when you refer to feelings, that means you just be aware when certain feelings arise. So when certain feelings arise, for example, like happy feelings. The Buddha says we should not allow these happy and unhappy feelings to shake our mind. So when happy feelings come up, naturally you want to be happy. So for an ordinary person, when you're happy, you want to jump for joy and you want to make a big thing out of it. You want to prolong it. But when it goes away, then you have a lot of dukkha. So because of that, the Buddha says, when happiness arises, just know it's happy. Don't be overjoyed. Just know that there is something temporary. It arises, it will pass away. So if you are able to control your happy feeling, so when suffering arises, in the same way, your mind is not easily moved. You can also just know that it's impermanent. But you need to develop a strong mind. If your mind is not strong, you may have the theory, but you cannot put it into effect because that strong states of feeling will just knock you down. Why we need to observe the mind? Because sometimes unwholesome states arise, unwholesome states of mind arise, thoughts and all that. So one of the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path is right effort. Right effort is when unwholesome states arise, you quickly try to get rid of it. And if wholesome states arise, then we try to prolong it. So observing the mind, observing the feelings, useful. A lot of us, we don't observe our mind. So when we don't observe our mind tricks us, For example, this Bojjhanga meditation, they taught to these prisoners, and this was prisoners who had killed people, murdered people and all that. So because the mind is very cunning, these people had actually killed somebody, but the mind tricked them into believing that they did not kill, They refused to believe that they killed somebody. Maybe they thought it's only in self-defense and all that. Then when they learn this vipassana meditation, they start to observe their mind. Then they realize they actually killed that person. Then only they admitted. So in the same way, all of us, we have a lot of faults. But a lot of people never want to look inside. So a lot of people always look at other people's fault. Never look at your own fault. So in that way, you can never change. And then when somebody criticizes you, tells you your fault, such people will refuse to believe. They get angry. They refuse to accept that they have these faults. But when we start looking into ourselves, instead of looking at other people's fault, we look into our own faults. And then slowly we realize it's true, we have such faults. And then we start changing. If you don't change, you're wasting your human life. The Buddha says you might as well go and die. Kisi kaho. Because you're using up all your blessings. Every day you're using up your blessings. If you walk the spiritual path, then you are a living person. Otherwise, if you don't use your life in a good way, in a way that benefits you spiritually, you are as good as a dead man. The Buddha says, even if you live for 100 more years, you're not going to progress from now. So you might as well pass away. Even Jesus also said, Jesus, when he asked his new disciple to follow him, he said, because some of his disciples were fishermen, he said, come, I will make you fishers of men. Instead of catch fish, go and catch men. So one of them said, Lord, my father or something just died now. I said, I have to go back and bury him. Then what did Jesus say? Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. In other words, those people who are not interested in the spiritual path, they are dead people. Let them take care of these dead affairs. Even the Buddha, when the Buddha was about to pass away, the Buddha said, after he has passed away, he told his disciples, you don't worry about my funeral and cremation and all that. Let the lay people look after that. So the Buddha is only interested in the spiritual path. All these worldly matters are not important. Okay, shall I translate that?